Brothers and sisters, today we are very fortunate to have Iqbal Asaria here to give us the TED Talk. Could we please welcome him forward with salawat? Professor Iqbal Asaria is a trustee of SICM, and in 2005 he was awarded a CBE for his service to international development. Inshallah, he's going to be giving the second part in his series on the Silk Route, past, present and future. Salawat.
Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum. Salam. This is the second of the talks on the Silk Route. Last time we saw how the Silk Road developed after the coming of Islam. Within 100 years, Muslims were all the way from Spain to the borders of China. And that was the main road for trading silks and spices. So in a very short period of time, Muslims controlled the whole of the trading space in that time. At that time, there was very little knowledge of the American continents in this part because there wasn't any communication. There was another civilization there were another trades and things there which we will come to. But essentially this enabled Muslims to monopolize trade. And obviously when you monopolize trade, you monopolize prosperity and so on. So what happened now? You can see, for example, that, sorry if I can get it, yeah. Even the sea routes, there wasn't any route around Africa. There were Muslim traders all over the place. So land routes and sea routes, the whole place was more or less monopolized by Muslims. And from 711, when they came into Spain, after crossing from Morocco, the Straits of Gibraltar, to around 1400, which is nearly 700 years, they had the monopoly of the whole route. In the meantime, of course, as you will see, we had the whole of the Crusades, the 5 or 6 Crusades, which the Christians launched to try to take back Jerusalem and to do all kinds of things, and they rampaged over the place. We don't have time here to go on the Crusades. Inshallah, next Ramadan we will do 3 or 4 on the Crusades. But the defeat in the Crusades and the loss of Jerusalem had a very big shock to their system. And slowly they started to regroup, and in Spain they came together, and eventually, of course, it was not only Jerusalem which was gone, Constantinople, which was the seat of Eastern Christianity, of Pope Constantine, was also gone and converted into Istanbul. Those of you who have been to Istanbul would have seen Hagia Sophia, which was actually the throne of the Pope, and that was finished. So this shock forced the Christians to think through, and slowly they started to regroup, and by 1492, which is about 700 years after the coming of the Muslims, the Spanish people were able to completely either kill or drive away all the Muslims and the Jews. It wasn't only Muslims, even the Jews were driven away from Spain in the Inquisition. Okay? Now, in this space, they realized that still the monopoly of trade was with Muslims. So there were some people who started to come to kings and queens and say, look, we need to find some way to overcome this problem. And one of them was Columbus, for example. He said, look, we don't have money and people to fight to get back Jerusalem. So we need to get people, convert them to Christianity, and we need to find money. So if you give me money, I will find an alternative route to the east, and I will convert those people, and we will retake Jerusalem. So his native Italians didn't accept this argument. But when he came to Spain, the king and queen of Spain, they said, fine. They gave him the money. If you go to Seville, you will see his mausoleum there, and all these letters and things, documents are there in Spain. And as we know, he set out on his voyage in 1492. And he actually, we are wrong in estimating that he went the wrong way. It wasn't that. He thought that if he goes the other way, he will reach the east faster. He didn't know the existence of the Americas. So he said, we're straight on to Philippines and China and that side. But anyway, as we know, he hit the Americas, and he came back saying that, well, we have discovered something new. The Spanish then followed through with other voyages to the Americas, and actually were able to loot the place, the Inca civilization, the Aztecs, so on. And the main thing they got from there was gold and silver. Huge amounts of gold and silver. So they brought this. With this gold and silver, they could actually now buy the goods from the east. Yeah? You have so much money. And most of the big buildings and huge churches and cathedrals and all kinds of other huge buildings were built from that money. But in the process of extracting the gold and silver, they also killed maybe up to 30 million people in South America. This is before the slave trade and before the North Americans, in South America mostly. They killed about 30 million people. Just brutal. They did not consider them. So this is the mission of God. We need the money for recapturing Jerusalem, so it's fine to just slaughter as much as you can in order to get it. And then Columbus's journey that way was followed by other explorers like Vasco da Gama, for example. And those of you who are from Kenya and so on will realize the Fort Jesus in Mombasa. That was one of the staging posts for Vasco da Gama, and then went into India in Goa. So effectively now you see the development of a route which is totally away from the Muslim routes. In fact, from Mombasa to India, Vasco da Gama was guided by a Muslim sailor. Because those, as I showed you before, they were already trading that part. They were just not trading this part. And slowly, this voyage is built up until we see the whole of the world circumnavigated by people like Vasco da Gama, then Magellan, then Captain Cook, and so on, all the others. Now you can see a full array of things which could bring goods from anywhere. And in those days, the land route, which the Muslims controlled, used to bring goods by donkeys, horses, and so on, which was not that efficient and not that fast. Now we have the sea route bringing goods in big ships, cheaper and faster. So you can see now that with this new development, the Muslim monopoly of trade is gone. Other people have got access to the goods who can bring it much faster and cheaper to these places. This effectively laid the basis of the decline of the Muslims, because somebody else had found some other way to do it. They developed good shipping routes. They also developed good ammunition, good sort of cannons and so on. You can see if you go to places like Fort Jesus in Mombasa and in Kilwa and Goa, all those cannons and things, these were developed in that time to defend against any intrusions and so on. So, having developed this alternative route, now the Europeans from many places, especially Spain and Portugal, which became powerful. England was behind on this. Spain and Portugal, because of their explorers, they started to go to West Africa as well, get slaves and gold again. As you know, Ghana was called the Gold Coast. So gold from Americas, gold from here, silver from there, trading in the East, bringing Eastern goods now directly. They say, why should we pay taxes 4 times to the Muslims? We just go get straight from there and bring it. And in fact, there was the mission to spread Christianity. So just one anecdote before we end. When Magellan reached the Philippines, he landed in a place which we now know as Manila. I don't know how authentic this is, but one of my good Malaysian friends, he said to me that the name of Manila at that time was Muna Allah. And the Sultan of the Philippines was a very good man. He welcomed Magellan, but very soon he found that these guys were trying to convert people to Christianity. So he slaughtered Magellan. Magellan never came back because he betrayed his hospitality. But the idea of Muna Allah at that time in Philippines shows to you how far and how well established the Muslims were. All that prosperity now was under threat. So next time, what we want to see is how the Europeans then built on and how the British muscled in and how the colonial empires developed and destroyed the whole of the Muslim world. Assalamu alaikum.